I don't get the sense that the Cardinals are going to trade for Juan Soto. And I'm not trying to read all the tea leaves, but you know how a week ago, the Cardinals, they're seen as the front runners from rival execs. But that seemed more like the Cardinals had the prospects to make the deal. And in the last week or so, you're seeing some legit reporters, but they're also wording it in a way where now the Padres are seen as the front runners, or the Dodgers are seen as the front runners.
They're treading it. They're walking the line. I always, when it comes, there's some teams I just know. It always feels like the Dodgers figure out a way. It almost always feels like the Yankees are going to figure out a way because they truly don't care about prospects at all. Like, they don't care at all.
F them
about
kids.
That. Exactly. Their Les Snead should have been from the Brian Cashman school. But somehow the Padres have a little bit of wizardry of how they use their prospects because they've acquired so many guys without even trading, the caliber of person that you hear us always talking about here in St. Louis, whether it's your Jordan Walkers and your Dylan Carlsons and all that. They still get all these people and don't have to trade them. So that's why I don't bet against them to do anything it takes to get this done.
And the Cardinals have made some big trades, obviously Arenado, Goldschmidt. But I think the difference with the Dodgers is the Dodgers, they always have a great farm system, but they also have an unlimited budget. The Cardinals have a great farm system right now. The Cardinals don't have an unlimited budget. So if the Dodgers trade away their farm system, but then they need a player at the trade deadline, what do? They'll go get a deal of Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. They have no problem trading for Mookie Betts in an offseason. And again, the Cardinals traded for Arenado and Goldschmidt, so give them credit. But if the Cardinals ever need to extend the payroll to spend money at the trade deadline, that's always going to be an issue. The Dodgers don't have that issue. They don't have to worry about that. They'll just spend the money. And the Padres are also in this spot where I think they'll basically do anything to try to win a championship in the next, let's say, 1, 2, 3 years. But then they're going to be terrible again. They're probably going to have to trade these contracts. And even now, you see a report where if they were to get Juan Soto, they might try to flip Blake Snell because they want to be underneath that luxury tax.
Spartan chimes in and goes, can't see the Yankees trading for Soto because that would mean they would move from Judge.
Well, Judge is a free agent to be.
Yeah.
So you can actually make the case that if they traded for Soto, you have the backup plan. Because it looks like Judge is going to walk. So whatever they offered him, which was a big deal, but remember, he's also older. He went to college. He's not a young dude, and he's always injured.
Yep.
So he's probably going to get the same type of deal or better, but it could be with the Yankees. But if you're the Yankees, you say, well, look, Judge might walk. We can get Soto and Judge for one postseason. Maybe Judge re-signs. If not, we have Juan Soto to replace Aaron Judge.
Why would Aaron Judge not want to sign that ticket in New York? Where else you want to play, man? You wear the pinstripes. Dude.
But at least hit free agency.
See what's up.
And force the hand for maybe the Yankees to give you more money.
Okay.
He's also a California dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Cardinals are 11 down from where they finished last year. They finished last year at 171 million on the books. Right now, they're clocking in at about 160, and next year they've got 84 that's already guaranteed. So, I mean, from a money standpoint, I don't see a lot of huge deals that are coming up. They've got to figure out. I mean, obviously the Arenado, keeping him on the books makes a big difference. But I mean, if the Cardinals wanted to add up to the level they've historically been at, they could, in theory. It's just about, what they want to do and making some of those decisions. So I truly think that it's about, do they want to pay the prospect price? And how does that factor into the future of what they got?
And you got it up right now. So what's the Dodgers payroll right now?
The Dodgers today are at $266 million, which is $61 million more than any other team in baseball.
So what's the Cardinals at?
The Cardinals today are at 171.
So the Dodgers have spent roughly $90 million. $90 million this year on payroll.
Jesus.
Think about that. Put that in perspective. What does Arenado make? About 35?
Yep.
What does Goldschmidt make? About 26?
Yep.
Okay, that's about 60. You got an extra 30. What does Wainwright make? About 18? Now you're up to 78.
3 Hall of Famers.
You got $12 million left, which Yachty's around, 10? Now I know Yachty's banged up, but think about that. That's the type of difference you can add in payroll when you spend $90 million more than the Cardinals, who, by the way, they're not cheap.
No.
So think about that compared to the Pirates. You're spending essentially. What's the lowest team this year? Is it?
It's
Marlins.
Just laughing at this. The Orioles are at $42 million this year.
That's 7 times the Dodgers' payroll is essentially 7 times that of the Baltimore Orioles. 7
That's
times.
7 unbelievable players.
No, that's like
Or 10 on
15.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 times.
Yeah.
They're paying a player essentially. What Mookie Betts is getting is probably not that far off from the entire payroll of the Baltimore Orioles.
Well, Daddy Padre is really close friends with Judge, and he said Judge to San Francisco. They have the money, and it's close to his home.
And they have the need.
And Daddy Padre knows all those guys. He hangs out with, Giancarlo Stanton.
San Francisco is only spending about $400K more than the Cardinals this year. The Cardinals, so the top 10 in baseball, starting from the Dodgers at that 266. Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, Phillies, Astros, Red Sox, Angels. No surprises there. Padres check in at number 8 because they're all in. And they're spending huge money right now to try to get it done. Then you get the Giants, then you get the Cardinals. So Soto, all of these teams are kind of in the same ballpark with the exception of the Dodgers, who are on another planet from, they should be in the Premier League spending that kind of money.
Daddy Padre chimes back and goes, "You don't even know 5 Giants players, you scrub." Yeah, no crap, I don't.
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Danny Dimes.
I mean, why would I? Why would I?
The Giants
I'm not
do,
friends
though.
with all of them like you are.
So I don't know if the Giants will get Soto, but the difference with all these conversations is look at the San Francisco Giants right now. This is a team that always tries to compete. They do spend money. They're in an enormous market. They have no superstar.
Yeah.
They traded for Chris Bryant last year. Chris Bryant walks to the Rockies. In years past, they've had Buster Posey. Now, I'm not going to count Brandon Crawford and Brandon Belt as a superstar. They need a superstar bat. So that's why it would not surprise me. I have to say, Daddy Padre's probably right. If I'm the Giants...
What, that I'm a scrub?
Well, no, you're not a scrub. But if I'm the Giants, I pay the ticket for Aaron Judge. You need to build a lineup around a superstar. They don't have one. Aaron Judge could be that superstar for San Fran.
Can I correct that number a little bit? The Dodgers are at 261 this year. The Mets are on their heels at 260. That was a 21. They were $60 million over last year with Scherzer and all those guys. They were at that level. But they've got $35 million suspended right now in Trevor Bauer, too.
So that's not even added to it?
Yeah, that's out of the... I think that's probably outside of the mix here. But, I mean, that's just insane. That's insane money.
Gio chimes in and goes, "Next season, Yachty will be gone, Pujols will be gone, Dickerson will be gone, McFarland will be gone. At $84 million, the Cardinals are in perfect position to add."
Yeah. That's a good point.
It's a great point.
Yeah,
I mean,
Gio.
they've got nowhere to go but to rise. I mean, and there's nobody that you look at who's in arbitration. I mean, Tyler O'Neill's going to rise up some. Jordan Hicks, Giovanni Gallegos, they'll rise up some. But, I mean...
There you go, Daddy Padre.
It just is what it is. I mean, yeah, you're going to clear some money off the books, but what are you going to do to get the most out of the team in that space?
Well, hold on, though. So the names he just mentioned, you're talking about some pretty small deals.
Marginal deals.
So Yachty's about 10. What's Dickerson? About 5. TJ McFarland's 2.5-ish.
So you're at 17.5
So we're at 17,
right now.
18. Who else is coming off
Who
the
else
books?
is 2.5? So now you're at 20.
You're at 20.
You basically have got what Matt Carpenter made last year, coming off the books between all of those guys.
Fans are so quick to forget all the great prospects: Reyes, Martinez, Piscotty, Grichuk, Wong, Waka, Miller, etc. You can get pitching and you can get some pitching and Soto. The guy is a generational talent and a top 5 player in the game. Those do not become available in 23. Nuts to not go for it.
Yeah, I think they're going for it. But again, if another team just gives up everything,
know.
the Padres are a more desperate franchise than any of these other teams. They haven't had the success of the Dodgers, obviously, of the Cardinals. The Padres, they're going for it. This is their window. And I'm telling you, a couple years from now, they're going to be trading everybody. It wouldn't surprise me if they had to trade Fernando Tatis Jr. in a couple years. They're going to get to a point where all of a sudden they're not very good anymore and their payroll is crazy high and they're going to have a sell-off. I promise you that happens.
The Padres are like a version of what the Marlins were for some years. They just hold on to it a little bit longer. The Marlins would boot up, spend all this cash, get the World Series, win the World Series, and then it's gone. It's a yard sale for everybody. The Padres have already done that once in this run where they had to move out everybody. Then they just started signing people to crazy contracts. Me personally, wouldn't want to deal with that. That would be a more frustrating type of team to deal with than a team like the Cardinals that, admittedly, could be a little bit more aggressive, might be able to go after some things. But honestly, when I look at what they did, they got the fleece of the century to get Arenado here. That was aided by the pandemic and by people just needing to get money out because they couldn't afford their teams the same way. But they've went after it the last couple of years, and you see what that cost is. I don't think there's anybody that sits around here right now that watches Sandy Alcantara and says, that was worth it. What did Ozuna get done for the team? Did they raise another pennant by bringing Ozuna in? And he was the best left fielder in baseball almost. In the conversation at the time when he came over. So there's no guarantee that the trade is going to make a difference either. It's just there's no promises in sports, period.
Question, is there any way that the MLB can raise the cap floor and then reduce the MLB service years on players' rookie contracts in order to prevent tanking?
Well, they could do it, but they didn't do it in the last labor negotiation. I mean, the Players Association took a wash as far as trying to get those things done.
It just puts a damper on teams like the Orioles, the Marlins, all these low market teams. Because, like, look at Machado, for example. Machado, they had however many good years with him as rookie contract, and then they knew they had no chance to re-sign him.
Well, the salary floor would have been the way to do that. Force competition. But then they say that, all right, if we do that, we're not going to be signing the same level of deals and things like that. So it's just, it's a whole trap. It's a bounce house between people that want to maximize their profits versus players that are going to have to essentially do what they got to do to get paid what they are.
Those bouncy houses? I saw another one going in the air with children in it the other day.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe, for example, now some teams can't have as many superstars, but if the Orioles were good, they could have signed Manny Machado to a $300 million deal. They gave out the worst contract in the history of baseball, by the way, about 5 years previous. The Chris Davis deal was a huge ticket, and that's arguably the worst contract ever signed in the history of Major League Baseball.
Okay, maybe that was a bad example then, but I guess my point is most of these teams are just in a hole.
The Baltimore,
when they have to try and re-sign these guys.
We talked about the top of the league, right? And some of this stuff is attached to markets. It's attached to who's got the money. The Cardinals are the biggest market breaker in all of professional sports with the way they're able to operate versus where they're at and what they should be able to do. When you look at the Baltimore Orioles, they're paying $46 million this year. The Oakland A's are up next at 48. The teams in those markets down there at the bottom are Oakland, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Miami, Arizona, Tampa, Kansas City. Those ain't big markets. Seattle, not big markets. Baltimore is a huge media market out there on the East Coast that should be doing more. Baltimore is the poster child for why not forcing competition financially is a problem for baseball.
But listen to real fast. All these teams that you just named, like the A's, the Royals, maybe the Marlins, they all had really good players that they drafted and had come up in their farm system. And then when time came, they couldn't afford any of these guys. Like, for example,
that's what they say.
But and like you said about Machado, like sometimes it does have a fault on these teams that are paying guys like Chris Davis the big bucks when they didn't deserve it or they didn't, live up to the hype. But like Hosmer and Moustakas with the Royals, Yelich and Ozuna and all those guys with the Marlins. Who's the other one? The A's losing Matt Olson and Marcana and guys like that.
It's the point. You can't be cheap and draft bad.
Right.
You can't do both, or you're gonna be in the toilet. But the Orioles, in my opinion, I feel like the Orioles are choosing not to compete. Because they should be able to afford it. Because I can remember back in some days, the Chris Davis contract is one example of it. They spent money and were good. They just decided to stop doing it the last 20 years or so.
Well, I think the Orioles are actually going to be really good for the next 5-6 years because they're already around 500 with a stacked farm system. I know Jackson Holliday's years off, but they already had a stacked farm system before that. So I think Baltimore is going to enter a window to win. I think sometimes what we forget about the Cardinals, and it's one of the reasons we criticize them, but it's also one of the reasons they're good every year, is because the Cardinals almost never play a game in the 162-game regular season that doesn't matter for the playoffs. Almost every single year, they either make the playoffs or they don't make the postseason in the last weekend of the season. And the reason that the Cardinals can spend is because for 20, 25 years, this ownership group has put out really competitive teams where fans want to come 3 million strong every year to watch a team that has a chance to go to the playoffs every single year. There's some other fan bases. Okay, it's great. It's great if you win a World Series once every 20 years or you have a nice run once every 17 years. But if you suck the rest of the years, nobody wants to go to your games. People always want to go to Cardinal games. Even when we complain, they're 7 games over 500.